Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, or myself, Matt, and my co-host Tyler,
Hello.
about a completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions
Yeah,
on the
we're not
movies of
being paid for
today,
this.
tomorrow, and yesteryear. I think we've graduated to professional, actually.
Yeah, a little bit, tiny bit. Yeah,
We've been doing
somewhere in
this
there.
this renaissance of Film Frauds for over a year. You know what? We're our completely professional,
Yeah,
100% unbiased opinions,
yeah. So
facts
yeah,
on the movies
facts.
of today,
Yeah.
tomorrow, and yesteryear. Speaking of facts, there are two movies that exist called X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past. This is the first time I think where we're doing a modern classics episode on two movies.
I think so. Yeah.
We might end up doing three with this.
Yeah, there might be a third movie in
There
this.
might be a
Yeah.
third movie that we talk about. But X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past were like early to mid 2010s X-Men movies. They were the relaunch of the X-Men franchise after having a commercially successful, but like kind of like critically like pandering off series starring Hugh Jackman, where X-Men 1 and 2 are very well received, and then they kind of X-Men 3 not so well received, and then X-Men Origins Wolverine just complete dumpster fire of a film.
There is a third movie in a trilogy that you and I went hard for. Was it X-Men Last Stand? Is that the one where you and I
X-Men
one
Last Stand
day?
is I like X-Men Last
I like
Stand
the
a
X-Men Last
lot.
Stand too.
I probably
Okay,
like it
because
more than the X-Men 1 and 2.
okay, so that I don't know about that take, but there's definitely like I remember us in high school like walking together one day and being like, X-Men Last Stand's a pretty good movie, and that was like we fought for that for a little bit. It
It
wasn't.
is people just cry because like I don't know. I think it's good. I think X-Men 3 is a solid movie, but regardless, the general population did not believe that, and X-Men Origins Wolverine was the final nail in the coffin, basically, of this X-Men series. So in 2011, they
Yes, First
relaunched
Class.
with
Yes,
X-Men First Class. I have an interesting history with these movies. I remember not seeing First Class in theaters. I think I rented it
you
on,
didn't see it in theaters?
no,
Oh wow, I did. Okay.
because like I think I rented it on Blockbuster or something after, and I brought it home, and I was like, "This movie's really good."
Yeah.
Like genuinely surprised how good the movie was. And since then, I remember we saw. Did we see Days of Future Past together in theaters?
I think so. Yeah,
It was
Days
a
of
pretty
Future
good. I
Past.
know we saw Apocalypse in theaters
We did
together.
see we did see Apocalypse in theaters
Yeah,
together.
but what stands most unique about First Class is like how all the leads in that movie like will go on to define the 2010s and
Yeah,
2020s.
yeah,
Like
Michael. Yeah,
almost everyone in the movie will go on to have successful films afterwards.
it's a weirdly very stacked cast, which is kind of
Yes, and
crazy.
this is kind of like the start for a lot of them. What's your relationship with X-Men First Class, the X-Men rebooted series? You're Mr. Research Man today,
Mr.
so
Researchman. It's really weird. So I remember seeing X-Men Last Stand in theaters. It was one of the first. It was part of that like
I saw
Spider.
X-Men Last Stand in theaters as
You did
well.
too. Okay, yeah,
I went for a kid's birthday party, like I
yeah.
was in sixth grade, and they all wanted to sit in the front row, but I didn't want to sit in the front row because it was too loud and scary in the front row. So I sat in the back.
You did you sit by yourself in the
No, with
back?
my friend's sister and her friend. So, and they were older. They were like in high school, so I sat with them.
You sat all the way in the
I
back.
felt pretty cool.
You were pretty cool. I like to think it's like all my friends are down there. You're like the real
Yeah,
cinematic
I'm like, no.
experiences in the back. I was X-Men Last Stand was
We had
part of
better
the.
seats too. Like we
Yeah.
could see everything. We're just like going like this,
Oh,
like
they were like front row. You
front
know?
row.
Oh, those idiots,
Yeah,
stupid children,
yeah.
fools. Yeah, no. X-Men Last Stand
I
was
was
part.
more enlightened as a fifth or sixth grader.
That's where you peaked too. You've said
Yeah.
that before. What was I gonna say? X-Men Last Stand is part of that like weird era of movies like Revenge of the Sith, Spider-Man 3, where I went and saw them in theaters. And remember being like, that was pretty good because I couldn't form like a coherent thought outside of like he punched someone, therefore it's a good movie.
Tyler left Revenge of the Sith saying he wanted more Jar Jar scenes.
Yeah, when he went, he was so funny. It's, everybody's irritated. Yeah, so I remember kind of that. I remember really liking it. I saw X-Men Origins Wolverine in theaters.
I
And
saw that
even
in
th
theaters too.
you saw it tears too. And even then I was like, man, he's in the woods a lot in that
I remember
movie.
not liking it. Like
I
that's
remember
like one
not
of the few
liking it
movies
either.
when I was little. I was like, this movie's not good.
Yeah, there's like I remember very vividly like he's naked running in a barn, and then that old family who takes him in gets murdered.
Yeah.
And then he like destroys a helicopter and I remember that. I saw First Class in theaters and was like, that's pretty good. And then Days of Future Past, which we'll get to, I remember was like getting into movies was like the big like uh like, oh my God, YouTube movie reviewers really loved X-Men Days of Future Past.
Yeah, I watch like so many podcasts with like panels of
Yeah,
like 30 somethings all paid to be there,
all
like
paid to be
talking
there,
about
talking about how good the movie was. And
yeah.
remember seeing it theaters being like, that was it was like one of the first movies I think really I dove into like internet culture, internet response, like internet online discourse with it.
Mm.
Which was equally as shocking when like I looked at the reception after watching Days of Future Past and saw like my mutuals on Letterboxd and the collective people were like, nah. But that was a really big movie at the time. And then I've seen X-Men Apocalypse in theaters. We saw it together. X-Men is a weirdly like very big staple in like my movie watching experience. I've seen X-Men and X-Men 2 a lot. I've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine was a big FX movie for a long time. So you turn on FX and Hugh
Guess what's
Jack
gonna be on? Yeah.
it's gonna be on there. There's a good chance. And we can talk about the quality of a lot of these movies and how they widely vary. Some being genuinely excellent, some being absolute dog shit. But they're weirdly important. They just are. Like these movies weirdly mean a lot to me. And despite the fact that they aren't that important, maybe in like the superhero like cinematic history now, or are they? Like I don't know. It's a very weird
Yeah.
experience. What about you though? Like do you have any history with like X-Men movies? Not just the ones we're
I would
talking
say
about?
like I was a huge fan of the X-Men. Like I loved I would say probably more than any other superhero franchise, like I like the X-Men the most.
They're cool.
Yes, they are cool. Like I played the X like when I was a kid, I played all the X-Men video games on like PlayStation
Wow.
2 and stuff.
Yeah.
Um when we talk about the Wolverine movies in the next episode, I'll reveal more of my thoughts on X-Men. That'll make it even more of a Uber fan, I would
Yeah.
say. I've read some of the X-Men comics. Like one of my favorite comic book series is like Uncanny X-Force, which is
Oh
like
wow.
a darker, like more mercenary take on the X-Men, and it's
Okay.
really good. I'll probably talk about it more once we talk about the Deadpool movies because the writers of Deadpool in this comic book, they don't need any swearing or any inappropriate language or any inappropriate themes, so they make Deadpool more funny than he is in
Yeah.
the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool and more creative. They actually have to be creative with their jokes. Shocking. Um, and like I'm currently watching like the X-Men 97 TV show.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, wasn't there also the Legion TV show that you watched and really loved?
Yeah, I watched the first season of that. It
Okay.
was pretty good. But like the X-Men 97 like relaunch on Disney Plus is getting like really great
Is
reviews.
is it a good show?
It's really good and it's very well animated. The acted scenes are really good and it's like across the board it's being very well received. So it'll be interesting to see because X-Men post COVID or probably post apocalypse has kind of seen like a bit of a downturn in interest.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the first year, both with X-Men 97 being good and also the Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out, where like a rebirth of the X-Men franchise could is kind of on the horizon right now. So it's
I
interesting to
mean,
go
yeah.
back and see where we've come from. And so I guess to start talking about First Class, I don't know your thoughts on a rewatch, but I'm going to start off with this statement. Is X-Men First Class the most successful relaunch of a series?
I your opinion and mine might vary differently on that.
Okay.
Uh I love these movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I branch into this? You love X-Men First Class.
Yes.
I am it's a good movie is basically where my take is. So if in
Okay,
terms
we're
of
gonna
like
fight, but
successful I have a lot of thoughts on these movies. And in terms of successful relaunch, like I mean, it's hard to argue that like the shitty superhero movies that came in like the early 2000s, like it might not even be the most successful relaunch in superheroes. I mean, 2008 Iron Man alone single-handedly is a phenomenal movie and then relaunched like the defining movies of the last fucking 15 to 20 years, arguably. Because I mean, what was before Iron Man? It was like the shitty Daredevil movie or whatever. Like that was the big one, and like
and
Hellboy
the shitty Electro movie
and the shitty Electric movie. Sorry,
and the Hulk movie by Ang Lee,
that's not as bad. I remember watching that when I was
Fantastic
younger.
Four,
Fantastic Four,
and
yeah. I
Fantastic
mean,
Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer.
we're getting a new Fantastic Four, and Disney bought Fox, so we're gonna get more X-Men movies in the future. Like it's all gonna come
Yeah,
back.
is the John Krasinski Fantastic Four something that exists still, or is it
What do you mean? Like
like was isn't doesn't wasn't John Krasinski from The Office gonna be
he was a can't
Mr.
believe I have to say
Fantastic?
he was a multiversal variant of
Wow,
of Reed
nerd. Are
Richards.
you a nerd?
Yeah, he was it was more, I mean, do you know who's
I like this for the audio listeners. Tyler just gave out the biggest sigh and dead
oh,
inside look
I can't believe I have to talk about
I've
this.
seen on this podcast.
From Marvel's, so you know who got casted in the new Marvel Fantastic Four movie? It's like Pedro Pascal, it's Pedro Pascal is the new Reed Richards in Marvel.
Well, I thought John Krasinski was the new Reed
No, he
Richards.
was like he was a multiverse guy
Did he
in
ever show up?
in did you ever see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
No, I have a life. I haven't seen it.
Hey, I saw that in theaters. He plays like Fantastic Four guy in that movie, and then spoiler alert, but he's brutally murdered in the movie. They kill him.
Really?
Yeah, they like oh my god, I can't believe I've talked about this. Wanda with her superpowers is evil in the movie. And in the movie, she is evil and he goes to stretch and grab her and she basically just like spaghettiifies him and like explodes his head.
How much of the movie is he in?
Like 15 seconds. No, he's in like 20 minutes of the movie. It's one sequence.
How do you go from
So
15
Doctor
seconds
Strange,
to 20 minutes?
so Doctor Strange runs into has dreams. It turns out dreams are glimpses into the multiverse. He runs into someone called he has dreams about another version of him dying saving a girl.
I'm
That girl
already overwhelmed.
is a girl called America Chavez. She can open the multiverse. And then she takes him into the multiverse. And in another universe is is the Reed Richards, where a Doctor Strange went evil, and then he's like, please, Wanda's coming. And then they're like, we're gonna arrest you. And then Wanda comes and murders a group of people. She actually murders Patrick Stewart as Professor X is in that movie.
What?
Yeah,
It sounds like the best movie ever.
he's in a wheelchair and he comes in and he like uses his mind and then Wanda goes into his mind and then snaps his neck in his mind. That's how he dies. I'm not joking. This is in the movie. It's like
Is this movie worth watching?
no, it's like it's Sam Raimi, so it's
Oh,
got a little.
so it's garbage. Okay.
It's a little Sam Raimi quirky charm with a Doctor Strange movie. It's like fine. You know
Okay.
how Shang-Chi was like a fine movie?
Yeah.
It's like that level.
Okay.
Where you're like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can't believe I have to
All
talk
right.
about that. So, what were we talking about?
Um, no, we were talking about we were talking about like early 2000s superhero movies.
Yeah, so is it the most successful reboot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering that the most successful financial iteration of this is Days of Future Past, in which they had to bring back legacy characters, I would say no. Because X-Men First Class made under $400 million. Same with Apocalypse. And those
Mm.
two, and Dark Phoenix is a bomb.
But like
And
what relaunch was more successful?
I don't know. You didn't ask me
Because
to
Marvel's
prep.
trying to relaunch and it's just a colossal failure. DC
I
had like
mean,
two good movies and like we're like getting excited and they went, we're gonna do another multiverse again. And then every movie since then has been garbage.
are you talking about
Um,
purely superhero movies? Like, is there
yeah,
a
I'm
successful?
talking about like major franchises, superhero
I mean,
blockbuster.
is like Fast Five considered a relaunch? Because Fast and the Furious is the fourth one. That one's kind of sucked, and then Fast Five turned into like an action spectacle franchise. Probably
That's
that.
true. They had one very tasteful scene and they've been riding on that one scene for literally 15 years at this point.
Yeah. So
Like, remember that one good scene that we had?
yeah, where it's like kind of emotional and people cry, and then it made like $2 billion.
We're
At the
like,
box
yeah, we're like
office.
critics and general audiences are both like, that was really good. And then
You know,
ever since then, they just are like,
so,
they've been riding on that.
yeah, I saw that movie in theaters and I was like, sure, why not?
Tyler felt nothing.
I felt nothing. I was dead inside.
And one's an
Maybe.
emotional scene. I want to see explosions.
I mean, it's pretty. We can talk about in terms of like successful relaunch. It's pretty shocking how quickly I would say the effort level of these movies drastically dwindled. How we the first two I would say are both really good movies. One being good, one being I mean one really good, and then they quickly scatter where the effort even from the actors is just gone.
Yeah.
X-Men Apocalypse, which I know you said not to spoil, I think is a garbage movie and you might like be a little bit higher, but you watch that and you're like, nobody really seems like they're trying. Like everybody seems just half-assing it, and I don't really know what happened. So in terms of like successful relaunch, maybe I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I would say Xavier's character arc is probably the most consistent throughout all three movies.
Might be the
Professor
only one
X's.
with an arc in these movies.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like when we can start talking about First Class because everything, all my opinions on the trilogy, I'll start with First Class because it's
Yeah,
the
me
first
too. There,
movie.
yeah,
Um, First Class takes place in the 1970s,
1960s.
60s,
Yeah,
and it's yeah, because it's Cuban Missile Crisis,
yeah,
and basically it follows the origins of Professor X, Magneto, and Mystique. So
yeah,
Professor X starts off as a little kid, and at the start of the movie, he's basically like a doctor student, PhD student,
yeah.
or a
Young,
professor.
hot,
Young,
charming.
yes, lives in Oxford.
He's trying to bang
Um,
women.
yeah, Michael Fassbender conversely is like survivor of Auschwitz and is like just like hunting Nazis in some of the best scenes in superhero history. I
It's
love
really
those
good.
scenes so much.
It's really good.
And Mystique is an orphan who's taken in by Professor X. And I wish like part of me wishes that I had like if I was older and was able to like watch the X-Men movies, the original trilogy as like a not a little kid, like how crazy it would have been just to like go from like Patrick Stewart, um, Professor X to like almost like the first scene with like James McAvoy as Professor X is him drinking a beer and like flirting with a girl,
Yeah,
and it's like it's so cool and he's so charming in it,
yeah,
and like just to see that contrast, and conversely like Magneto, like he's like an older gentleman in the original trilogy, and then like to see him as like this like crazed Nazi hunter.
yeah. It's kind of
How
awesome.
cool like that transition would have been. It's awesome to watch it on screen, but to be able to to have been able to be an adult and to appreciate that would have been so cool. And I think X-Men First Class stands to me as like probably my favorite X-Men movie is because of the characters
Hmm.
in this movie. I would say because my appreciation for X-Men First Class upon watching it was very high, but I think I appreciate it even more
Yeah,
um seeing Days of Future Past and Apocalypse because I feel like the characters get watered down in the subsequent movies. Like I feel like they're
yeah,
very complex, and I didn't appreciate how complex they were until I watched the other ones. Where when Bryan Singer retakes over, because just for context, this First Class is directed by Matthew Vaughn and has different writers than any of the other X-Men movies,
yeah,
and there's just an energy to the movie that Bryan Singer can't replicate, and
yeah. Bryan Singer, was offered to direct this role, but he
I'm glad
couldn't.
he didn't
He
because
was,
like it's like Professor X and Magneto's relationship is so much more complicated in this movie.
yeah,
And Days of Future Past comes, Magneto's character takes a hit. Like he's not nearly as interesting in any of the subsequent movies as he is in First
yeah,
Class. And even though I think Professor
yeah,
X has a pretty good character arc throughout the three, he's still I think in First Class like his relationship with each individual member of the X-Men, like how he gets them to like to control their powers is so interesting to me, and like especially because I feel like montages are usually cheesy in movies. The
yeah.
montage here is like the
Fucking
best
awesome,
montage
fucking
ever.
awesome,
It is
so good.
amazing. Like and it has and it's smartly written because again he finds different ways to connect to each of the members, and it feels like every character has a unique relationship with every other character
Yeah,
in this X-Men group. And then once you get to Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, they kind of serve more just to like oh Beast has a funny line. He's Professor X's assistant. He's no longer as interesting as he was in the
yeah.
first movie. I don't know if you felt similar to that. Like I think the character work in First Class is like top tier.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting of a movie. Even like I don't want to like jump around and script jump too much to like my favorite scenes in these movies, but like the
Mm.
montage sequence, if you want to talk about an example of like a really well written movie, if you look at that montage scene, there's moments where you can see because there's Professor X, there's Charles, and there's Eric, the Magneto guy. And like you can see how they have different views of leadership. We can talk about how the ending plays into all of
Completely
that.
different upbringings.
Completely different
Yeah.
upbringings, completely different like one wants good but has only experienced good, and one wants good but it's like it's but has only experienced like hardship and can only see the negative and the positivity. But the way that character interactions are written and then reflected on the characters, there's a great scene where Magneto, the guy who has the yell that can fly, he jumps out the
Yeah.
window and then it doesn't work, and so they bring him to the
Ah! And he
top.
just
Yeah,
falls.
and then he
That
fought.
never ceases to make me
If
laugh. I
it's
love
funny,
that.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
a little quick, but there's a great little moment where there's a lot of like Charles engaging with the people, pushing them to go on their own. And then you have Magneto push the guy with the mouth thing off the tower and he flies. And you see in the next scene that Charles has taken a lesson from that. And when he stands in front of Havoc because Havoc can't control it.
Yeah.
He has someone stand on each side as if he's like giving him the push directly, like putting himself in. And it's a great little, like, he took a little bit of a leadership lesson and then from Eric and then applied. And it's that little wonderful little representation of like their dynamic of how they act. It is genuinely good character writing. Um, it's pretty clear though. So this movie was originally designed to be. So this is also like X-Men Origins Wolverine came out and nobody liked it and it didn't make a ton of money. And at
Mm.
the time, they had this idea plan to make X-Men Origins
The worst
movies.
thing that X-Men Origins did though was give Ryan Reynolds a platform.
Yeah, to then make fun of himself and go past. Yeah. But they had these plans for like a Magneto movie. And I remember going on those old websites looking up new releases and seeing like X-Men Origins Magneto and being like, that's gonna be the coolest thing ever. But they scrapped it and they turned it into X-Men First Class. And you can tell that they built a movie off the foundations of a Magneto movie because everything with Magneto and Eric's character is like vastly better than I would say everything else in this movie.
Oh,
Um,
I would say it's better, but I do think Xavier's arc is really good as well. But there are scenes where you're watching like him like interrogate the Nazis in different scenes, and you're like,
yeah,
this is like Tarantino levels
yeah, it's
of
like
like
they're
tensity, and it's so good. But
yeah,
I understand what you're saying, and
yeah,
I do agree to a certain extent.
yeah. They had the foundations for a really interesting Magneto story, like a survivor from Auschwitz. I know that's in his character. At least I'm pretty sure it is, right? The Magneto comic book
Yeah.
character is that, but they really had a passion with that, and I mean, I think
In
Michael
X-Men 3, when they're showing off their tattoos, Magneto pulls out his wrist and it has the number on
is
it.
the
So
okay. Good to know. Is it the same number from First Class?
I don't know. Is that a cinema sin?
There's a Simmet thing. I don't know.
Are these
Big.
movies now objectively bad?
They're now objectively now we can't talk about them anymore. But like it's very clear. I think even from like the casting of Michael Fassbender to like the narrative around it to the way they take his arc to the I'd say like even the subtleties of even how the movie ends. I think they had like an A+ Magneto origin story and like a solid B+ rest of the other movie, which we can talk
Okay.
about maybe some deficiencies I had with the movie later and stuff like that. Some stuff I maybe didn't work as well on a rewatch. Yeah, the character writing in this is phenomenal. Did you feel this way? I know you said you wish you appreciated younger, but how many times have you seen this movie? Has your viewing habits of it changed? Have your
I would say
opinions on
like
it
three or
changed?
four, maybe like four times I've seen it.
Yeah.
Because like when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, this movie's really, really good.
Yeah.
And then since then I come back to it every couple of years just to rewatch. And I just think as I get older, and especially on this most recent rewatch, just I didn't appreciate how the writers, as I was saying, like how Xavier approaches each student in a different way.
Yeah.
Like with Beast, he brings up Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like more. It's not like his isn't like a scientific issue where it's like he can't control his powers, but it's more of a philosophical
Mm,
issue. So he brings up literature, and it's like James McAvoy is so good,
he's so
and like
good.
him and Michael Fassbender are like best friends in real life.
Are they really?
And I think so. I think
Okay, good for them.
they're very great friends in real life. And it shines through to me.
Yep.
Like their chemistry is amazing in these movies, and they play different characters, like ideologically different characters, but they you can feel like the mutual respect and like the chemistry that they both bring out the best in each other in a weird, twisted way.
Yeah.
And like when they're especially when they're on the same side, like there's scenes where like Magneto is like shoot the gun at me. And he's like, I'm not gonna like, what's the point? You know you can stop it. Like we need to push you harder. And
Yeah.
like, and it's not his isn't a matter of like his strength. It's a matter of where he's channeling that strength from, like from his love or his hate. And then again, it's like completely different. He's a different issue than every other member of the X-Men of
Yep.
this, and I just love it. Like
So you're a big fan of like the group, like how each ideologies of the characters like impact each other person.
yeah,
Like Mystique's dynamic with Eric and Beast and Charles, I think is really good. I think that's a great shining light of the franchise. Is Jennifer Lawrence really cared in the first movie, moderately care in the
yeah. In the
second
first
movie,
movie, she carried.
and then the third, and then by Apocalypse, you're like, damn, dude, you're not even in the blue makeup anymore. Like you don't want to be here.
Yeah, she
uh,
infamously hated the blue
There's a
makeup.
scene. There's a scene in X-Men Apocalypse, and I don't want to jump ahead to that discussion, even if we're gonna have it. But we're literally like, you have to be a leader, and then they knock every single kid out, and they completely separate her and completely undo that whole leader thing right
Yeah,
away. They're like, they're looking to you, and then they just fucking all the kids are gone. I thought that was really funny. Uh, I'm very curious about this because you really like First Class. How do you feel about, I'd say, the structure of the movie? Because that was something that stood out to me, and I'm not necessarily like in a good or bad way, but rewatching it, it's a very oddly structured movie where it goes from very, very quick introductions. You can meet the character, but then the characters immediately within like 15 minutes, it's like, there's Kevin Bacon, we got to get him. And then they meet, and then they go through a big conflict where they bring everybody together. They have the moment where Darwin is killed. They all kind of scatter, train, and then the big like climactic comment. It's a very like, to me, rewatching it, it felt very oddly structured, but not in a good or a bad way, just very unconventional.
It's just telling like a lot. It's just telling a big story. I think,
It's a lot.
yeah,
It's a lot. It takes in like the Cuban Missile Crisis is actually was saved by the X-Men. I think is a really
yeah.
fun, fun
Which I mean,
detail.
what a great like final set piece too.
Yeah.
Like a fight, like an X-Men fight during the middle, during like the peak of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
That's such a fun set piece.
Where the
And
missiles are launched and then Magneto stops them and then
yeah,
sends them back. It's great.
I would say from like a plot point perspective, yeah, the movie's kind of all over the place, but from a character arc perspective, like the characters follow
Yeah.
conceivable and I think really good arcs there.
Yeah.
But I would agree it goes a little bit all over the place at times, like when they go to Russia randomly.
Yeah.
And which is it's a great scene where the guys are going to the back of the truck and
Yeah.
he uses the mind control so they don't see anything. Like that
Yeah.
was so clever. Um, it does go a little all over the place. It's telling a big story, but the characters are so likable that it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I would say there's a few different things about it that maybe stops it from being this really good movie. It's pretty interesting
Emma
because
Frost.
Emma Frost Emma Frost is it's interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of different things. The first is that I forgot how like deliberately campy and kind of like tongue in cheek and superhero-y it is. It's very much
I
like
like
the
that.
I like it too. But it's very interesting because I think that's a very clear tone it establishes. It has that very comic booky montage. It has lots of scenes where like the characters are kids essentially a lot, so they're like hanging around, showing off their like it's deliberately meant to be fun, a little campy. They don't have too many of those. There's only two lines where Charles is like, "Oh, you'd rather me be bald," and then they kind of like look at the camera. There's two of those. It's not awful. It's like it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly
Not as
fun and
awful
campy.
as how they eventually explain how he becomes bald.
It's he becomes bald because a god mutant tries to transfer his consciousness and he loses his hair is basically the explanation.
Yeah. But I'm
Um,
glad it's not like he just got older and
yeah,
then lost his hair. God forbid.
God forbid he has to just can't just bald like a normal person. Um, I think for me, maybe some of the stuff that I didn't like as much in the movie is there is, despite the runtime, despite how much care I think they give to the ideologies, there's a lot more telling about like how close people are
Oh,
than
I
I
think there's way more telling once Bryan Singer comes
well,
back.
I think there is too, and don't get me wrong, it is a legitimate fault with these movies across the board.
Your blue friend is causing a lot of chaos in the 80s. Then Colossus looks in the camera and goes, Mystique.
Mystique, it's Mystique. But there's like it's a definitive flaw. I would say there is I wish for a movie that was 130 minutes and like a solid 130 minutes. We had like three more scenes with Charles, with Mystique, and with Eric because it serves as the foundation for the
Hmm.
legitimate remaining three movies. And when the remaining two movies, and this is where like why we have to talk about the construction of these movies eventually, like the franchise, how this like weird little trilogy, technically four, all don't work if you really think about how none of the movies feel cohesive in any capacity. They don't make any sense that they're ordered like this. The names are fucking terrible, except for First Class. That's more Days of Future Past argument. That is a
Yeah.
terrible name of a movie, by the way. Just throw that out there.
High
Uh,
School Me thought that was the coolest name ever.
so did I. And now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, a movie that made $800 billion is called Days of Future Past. Uh, it's it's a little just bit more 2010 superhero like Captain America, Thor style movie where you're
Hmm.
like, it's good, but it's definitely restricted by its genre and what it's going for. A little bit, I would say, is
Okay.
my argument. If that
I would
makes
argue
any sense.
that it exceeds its genre because
Well,
of the performances and
because
the
okay.
script. And even Matthew Vaughn is excellent
He's a
directing
very good
here
director. There's a lot of like really
before he
great
lost his mind and just
made
made a
Argyle.
absolute crap.
I would just say there is like a lot of superhero isms in the movie. There's it's just like it's a hard thing to describe for me, at least. Why just like occasionally I'm like, that's a franchise world building scene. Like little stuff like that I think takes away from the really good parts of the movie. And I would say there's like three really awesome like elements of the movie. It's like it's one, there's like a couple little individual scenes. It's the scenes where the kids are like naming themselves, feels very much like, look at these teens with superpowers. They're just having fun. It's that end fight, and
Yeah.
it's like the training montage.
I would say
And
the only point where the movie feels like it's rushing is when like Darwin is killed and it's like they take no time to like make all the characters bond. It's like I feel like they just landed like that
that's
morning.
exactly.
That's
Is
what
that
it
the same?
feels
Is that the
like.
night they're literally like, we're all friends, we're all named, Darwin's dead. It's
Yeah.
like in. But I thought there was like a little bit of time. I do like that scene though, where the Azazel is like just
Yeah.
dropping people
Oh,
out of the
he's cool.
sky.
I wish there
Because
was more of him. I like the Soviet
yeah, you
devil
know he's
man.
dead in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, I
You
saw
saw
like
you saw that,
when he's
right?
flipping through the dossiers.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, he's
Azazel. I'm like,
dead.
why? Also Zoe Kravitz is dead in the sequel too. Makes it
Yeah,
sucks.
and the mouth guy, the "Whoa" guy.
Yeah, that guy's dead too. There's a lot of like really good stuff. I would say that one, Darwin, that whole death, I think, if you really, not the cinema sins it, but he's like, I can adapt to everything. And then Kevin Bacon's like, adapt to this. And he just doesn't. And you're like, why can he not do that? Like,
Because it's dramatic, Tyler. It's a
okay.
movie.
So, also, Kevin Bacon in this movie, what are his superpowers?
He controls energy, dude.
What does that mean, though? He's getting shot with bullets and he's like, do. How does controlling
It's
energy have
not,
anything to do?
it's Lovecraftian. It's fear of
It's
the
not Lovecraft.
unknown.
It's not
It's
Lovecraftian.
art.
How does controlling energy? It's not like he stops the bullets; he like absorbs them. What does that mean?
It wasn't until literally this episode I realized I'm the biggest simp for X-Men First Class, and I'm just the biggest apologist. I feel like I'm the press secretary right now,
Yeah, the
apologizing.
people
Like,
haven't seen shit until we get to Wolverine. When we're like defending the third act, we're like, no, you
oh
don't
yeah,
get it. The
I'm
guy in the samurai
defending
suit,
that movie to
the
my
guy in the
grave.
samurai suit, it's allegorical.
It's art.
It's art.
It's a hero's journey.
You haven't seen shit until we got to that movie. Kevin Bacon is in this movie. That's
He's
my
good.
entire. He's fine.
I think he's I'm such a propagandist for this movie. I think he's really good. I
There's a
genuinely think he's charismatic.
There's a
And
great thing with him with the Nazi coin, which you
yes.
texted me and you're like, that's cinema. And I agree. The bloody Nazi coin falling, and then at the beginning, the Nazi coin turning into the back half of the X-Men logo, I think
Mm.
is genuinely weird. Like the X-Men are founded in like historical marginalized violence. Kind of like is like a very great like little flip of the coin there. Like I think that's awesome. Not to be
Yeah.
pun intended. I think it's a great representation.
I actually like him a lot in this movie. I
He's like, I'm gonna blow up the world and the X-Men. It's like, can you survive a nuke?
it's
Like
so cool when he absorbs the grenade.
it is, yeah, and he's like,
That's so awesome.
but why does he have multiple arms when he does it? Why does it like do what are his
Because it's moving
powers?
so fast. That's what it
It's
looks
not
like.
what that is. I think it's energy. My argument is, and this is
It's like when you flip a
why
pencil like this, and it looks like there's multiple pencils going up and down. It's the
okay,
same thing.
that's actually good for it. My whole argument is this. His whole plan is like, I'm gonna nuke the world and only the strongest will survive. There cannot be that many X-Men who can survive a nuke with their superpowers.
But
Like, like
yeah.
Mystique is not
Do you think Tornado Guy's gonna survive?
like Mystique is not surviving a nuke. Like, it's not gonna happen.
He
The
killed
guy
the one guy who could probably survive
who
the
could
nuke.
survive, who could adapt to anything. They're like, you could survive a nuke, and he just blows him up for some reason, which makes no sense. He could survive to anything. Why does he not survive to a little energy bomb? What did he disintegrate? Makes no sense. Whatever.
But okay, first of all, I want to say, before we conclude our discussion with First
We
Class,
have
so
so
we've been
much more to talk
talking
about. We're not
for
done yet.
oh, okay,
We,
but I want to say,
this is gonna be the longest episode by a mile. I
okay.
have so
Again,
much more to
I'm gonna
say.
be a propagandist for a second. Does this have the best cameo of any superhero
Yes.
movie?
Yes.
Okay, we can agree on that.
And it has a cameo that fits into the world, the lore of
Yeah,
the world. I love Stan Lee. Don't get me wrong, rest in peace. But you always see he's in a Days of Future Past. Oh no, he's in Apocalypse.
he is an apocalypse.
But he has like it's a cameo that fits for the character in the world. I think is great.
Logan. Yeah, we're talking about Wolverine at a
Wolverine.
bar.
Yeah,
But
that's
even then, like I love again, Fassbender and McAvoy have such great natural chemistry that the other montage of the movies when they were recruiting
yeah,
all the X-Men, like that is super fun
it is
as
great.
well.
Yeah, super fun, super awesome. There's There's just a lot of great little stuff like that. I mean, we barely talked. Jennifer Lawrence is giving a good
She's
thing.
good, and I like he has good chemistry with Beast
She
because Nicholas
does.
Hoult is like such a great actor.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we
he's
just
another guy who's like young here, but like will go on to be in amazing movies in the
yeah,
2010s and
he's gonna be Lex
2020s.
Luthor now in the new DC movie.
Yeah,
So, but no, he's awesome. I mean, I think the movie does a great job of those like four of showing the difference between like acceptance and like internalized. I don't think like internalized like one of the like not like internalized hatred kind of thing to yourself where Beast is like the blue will never be beautiful, like my feet will always be ugly.
yeah.
um there is
And
a
even
third.
like I love how Xavier like he's like the perfect professor, but
Yeah,
he can't understand like the mutants have to hope to hide who they
yeah,
are. Like that's like
because
his one flaw is he can't. He's like he just there's like a mental gap between that. Like that's why him and Mystique. That's why Mystique ultimately sides with Magneto at the end is
yeah,
because that's like the one thing Magneto has is he understands what it's like, both like from being like a Jewish person
yeah,
in Europe during World War II, like that being in that march, like not being able to hide who you are.
yeah.
Like it's
It's
brilliant.
great.
It's
It's
so
great
good.
writing. It's great writing. It takes the Holocaust in the marginalized aspects of what
Yeah.
X-Men typically represent, marginalized groups. You can insert them for any marginalized group in history, and it fits really well. I can't disagree with you on that one. It's really good. It's really
Because
awesome.
because like Xavier's like is like that privileged rich kid, like
Yeah,
flirting with ladies and
yeah.
drinking beer in Oxford. Oh, sorry, they shoot Oxford so beautifully. I was
Is it
like, that's a
actually Sean
ball. I was like, I've
Oxford?
been there. I was there. Yeah, no, it's
Really?
all yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've been to
Okay.
most of the places that were there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Didn't have as much luck with women though.
Well, you couldn't read their minds, so maybe if you
Yeah,
could,
you're
there you
right.
go. Maybe you could go like this. My favorite, he's like this, and then when he's really squeezing it in there. That was really fun. I'm gonna get in his mind. Um, I like, I mean, like, I like the ending. I like how the big main ending interaction isn't like we're gonna beat the shit out of this Kevin Bacon dude. It's like we really just have to outsmart him because we can't beat him. And I like the coin going through his head is
But oh, even like
awesome.
leading up to that when he gets frozen
Yeah,
and like Fassbender and like Magneto Eric's diatribe about like I agree with everything that you said,
yeah,
but you killed my mother. Like when he
yeah,
delivers that
great.
line every
Yeah,
time, it's like the coldest line
yeah, it's
of
awesome.
any superhero movie ever.
Yeah,
Uh,
you agree with you. I agree with you on the eugenics of like other like every non-mutant. He's like, you just kill my mom. Like,
the
fuck
way
you.
he delivers that line though, but you killed my mother. It's
Yeah,
like it's so
great.
cold.
It's awesome.
And then
Michael
like
Fassbender.
the coin going through the head while also Xavier's occupying Kevin
Mind.
Bacon's head and like the screaming of him
Yeah,
as it's like sliding through the forehead.
yeah,
So good. And then when the coin shows at the end, it's covered in blood.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, and it drops
cinema.
at the
It's
end like the Nazi
cinema.
coin cover. It's so good.
Yeah.
It really is good.
That's
Why
like
Rose?
something that like not to be a grifter for a second, but like Disney wouldn't do nowadays.
Yeah,
I don't think like it feels like has a little bit of an edge to it that like you wouldn't
I mean
you'd
it's
be
not
less
like
likely to
yeah,
see right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
But
I
it's
would agree.
I love it so much. And was anyone more untouchable in like the early to mid 2010s than Michael Fassbender? Like was anybody as because he had this, then he had Prometheus right after.
Yeah, it's like
And he
it's
had
an
like Frank
absolute.
at this time as well.
Oh,
Shame came out, I think, around this time.
Shame's the one I watched. Shame. You've seen Shame, right?
I've not seen it, but I
Shame
know
is
he's like amazing in it.
fucking phenomenal. He's
Yeah.
so good in that. That's Steve McQueen. I haven't seen Hunger. I think he's in Hunger. Is the
I've not seen
2008.
I've never heard of Hunger, I don't
Hunger,
think.
I think, is like him, but like he goes on like a hunger strike. Shame is like the sex addiction, porn addiction one.
Yeah.
Really good in that. And
Is
Michael
Frank
Fassbender,
he wears a mask.
but he's awesome in it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best part of this movie. Like, if you, I would find it hard pressed to find a better actor in this movie, to find someone giving a better performance, or something just better than him in this. His story, the way his arc and his themes interact and clash with the rest of the movie, how his performance, I would say, like, I know James McAvoy's really good. I know a lot of these people are really good, but he's just a better actor, I think, than everybody else in this movie. Like, I'm just gonna be
Mm.
completely honest. Like, that scene where he's moving the satellite dish and the expression of like rage and sorrow, but joy, how he
Yeah,
captures it all in
transitioning into
one.
joy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is like he gives the best performance. I think he is in a shining light in all of these movies, even if I think James McAvoy's actually pretty. We'll talk about Days of Future Past in a second, but he's a shining light in these movies, even if the arcs immediately repeat in the next
Yeah.
two movies.
And again, I just want to like to conclude like my thoughts on the movie, like they're falling out at the end, like Xavier and Magneto's falling out.
Yeah,
It's handled with so much more nuance here than any of the subsequent X-Men movies, where it's like
yeah,
they still respect and even like love each other to a certain extent, but
yeah.
they're just on different paths. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
like the way they handle their falling out, but
yeah,
like at the same time, like when Xavier gets shot in the back, like the first thing Magneto does is care for him and
yeah.
like so I don't know. I feel like it's like the way they handle like their relationship is so good in this
Yeah.
movie, and
Yeah.
it's like the fact they never like lose respect for each other, never fully lose care for each other. Like especially when you go to like when you go to like not so much in Days of Future Past, but definitely in Apocalypse, it feels like they're strangers. Like it
They
feels
are.
like they
Yeah.
don't know each other. The
Yeah.
way they interact, and Magneto's just like,
Charles, like, yeah, he's like moving and he brings the submarine up and the fact that he basically stops killing everybody because his buddy got hurt. He hurt his
yeah,
buddy is
it's
great.
yeah.
And he goes and he blames Rose Byrne is in this movie for no reason. That was my final like she's a love interest, but they share no chemistry. They kiss
They kiss
once.
it right at the end. I'm like, wait, did they ever establish that
They
they had?
never did. They never once did. Never once did. That was like a big like, and then he wipes her mind, and then it comes back in Apocalypse, and you're like,
Yeah,
why? I was not yearning for a Moira
yeah. No one was.
McTaggart character arc in the three movies. Um, is this your favorite? You think this is your favorite X-Men movie?
Well, I don't want to spoil my thoughts on the Wolverine, but
I have one more question for you, and then we can talk
yeah,
about Days of Future Past because I think this leads into it. Um, an X-Men movie without Wolverine as the lead, it works.
very
They should
well.
they should take more hints from this. That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
When
Well,
the
I
when
mean, it also doesn't work as well in another movie that we're going to
yeah, we're
see.
gonna talk about. But that's my thought is like you had a good movie, you had a lead without Wolverine. We can have an X-Men movie without Wolverine. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Which they immediately, leading into our next discussion, abandoned with X-Men Days of Future Past, which I want to throw this out there. I don't want to say that I feel so vindicated. I basically I watch X-Men Days of Future Past, and my entire thought was like, these are third movie stakes. I was like, I put in my Letterboxd review. I didn't do any research. I was like, these stakes do not feel cohesive with a two movie lineup. Like they're like end of the world, like character arcs coming to resolutions, like build up, build up, build up, only to find out that Matthew Vaughn was set to return to the sequel, and he had an idea to bring in a young Logan, to bring in potentially Tom Hardy, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
And they had Days of Future Past as an idea for a third movie, and they wanted to make it for the second one because they were like, this could make so much money. This could be so cool. Like we have to make it now. And he walked away and he made Kingsman. Regardless of your thoughts on Kingsman, I like Kingsman.
Yeah, I like
Um,
Kingsman too.
I like Kingsman for one. Maybe the second one not so much, but I like the first
What about
Kingsman.
the King's Man?
The movie is fucking awful. The movie's so bad. It's so bad. He basically walks away because he doesn't want to make this legacy sequel. So Bryan Singer comes back for this one. Uh, and
And
I'm
immediately dumbs everything down.
and immediately like makes it bigger, dumber, somewhat better, but also makes absolutely no fucking sense as a movie. And it makes no sense in a franchise. And it 100% sends everything to a screeching halt. This movie was a massive success. It cost a fuck ton of money, like $200 to $250 million for the movie. It made almost $800 million worldwide, so it made some money. It is the dumbest second movie in a franchise that has been running for this long and screams like I have no plan. Shades of The Last Jedi, where they're basically like, fuck everything else. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, this fucking movie and this franchise. I can talk about more in detail. Matt, what's your
I
history of
wouldn't
Days?
say it makes absolutely no sense, but
It does.
it does feel like the momentum of X-Men First Class is derailed to a certain extent because where you see the characters leave off in First Class versus
Yeah.
where they are in Days of Future Past, you're kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
How? Yeah.
okay. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like Xavier was very fulfilled in at the end of First Class, despite the losses that he endured. And then in Days of Future Past, he's like
I,
the X-Men equivalent of like a heroin
yeah,
addict.
he's a heroin addict in the movie. It's crazy. Okay.
He's still so good in it though.
He's so good in it. Okay, I have some questions because
I
this is
don't want your
I
future.
don't want your future. I need it. And he's just like I used. Okay, I have some questions for you about this. Do you remember seeing this in theaters?
Yes.
What were your original thoughts when it
I
came
thought it
out?
was the coolest movie I've
I thought it was
ever
the
seen in my
coolest fucking movie I've
life.
ever seen in my entire life. I thought it was the coolest movie ever. I thought that scene where James McAvoy talks to Patrick Stewart,
It's a great scene.
it's a great scene. I thought that was the coolest thing that has ever graced the screen in cinema when I was like 15 when that came out.
I think what I noticed most about on this rewatch of this X-Men trilogy is like there's so many cool characters that don't say a single word, and you're like desperate for more information about it. Like we talked about with what's his name? Azel, whatever.
Azazel.
Azazel, like that lady in the future of Days of Future Past with like the portals and
Yeah,
everything. Like she's so cool. She
yeah.
doesn't
Why
say a
is
single word.
just say
And
single word she gets
Bishop is so
stabbed?
cool.
Bishop's
Doesn't
awesome.
doesn't
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything really. Like when I was little, when I was younger, I should say, I was like I didn't care about this stuff, but now like as an older person, I'm like I want more. Like I want to learn more about these people.
yeah.
My
That
biggest
guy. Yeah.
issue, I think, with Bryan Singer's takeover of Days of Future Past and what's it called, Doff.
I'm not calling it DOP. I'm not giving
Doff.
that movie. It does not deserve an acronym like
Days of
that.
Future Past and Apocalypse is like the prologue stuff is like super unique and interesting, and
Yeah.
then it just goes back to Magneto being bad and they got to stop him.
That's
Like,
the
can you
fucking
imagine
thing. Yeah.
a whole movie about like it's like old ancient Egypt, like all these rebels trying to stop this like this like godlike mutant figure.
Yep.
Like that sounds so much more interesting than we got to stop Magneto. He's
We're gonna
evil
do
again.
it evil again. You don't.
Like
You're a good guy, Magneto, and
he
it's like
can't help himself, but just go back to the same story over and over again.
it's shocking. So I think this is a weird movie because I would argue it's at the same time marginally worse than First Class and marginally better. And I
From a
do.
character's perspective, it's marginally worse, but from like like it feels like it has more stakes and it feels more epic, and you can't deny
You
because like the
can't.
one thing, because putting you back in the 2014, back
Yeah.
when dinosaurs roamed the earth, um,
And I was happy.
um, and like so Marvel is getting huge at this point. Like
And that's
The Marvel machine
Winter Soldier. That's Winter
is just like
Soldier here.
we're
Yeah.
in phase two. We're fully on board. And
Yeah.
X-Men, they're wondering, and then DC's god awful and no one
Yeah.
can.
Don't give a shit about that. Yeah. Man of
And
Steel came out and everybody's like, what is this? Dog water.
we were still excited for Batman vs Superman at the time. Little did we know that it was gonna be an absolute dumpster fire.
God,
Um,
that first Comic-Con trailer for that movie was
that was so
so
good.
cool. It was
That
so
was so
cool.
good.
Oh,
And the one thing X-Men has over Marvel at the time is its legacy. Like
yeah.
it has the established trilogy that people really liked. Well, the first two movies people really liked. And so it feels like they're sort of this is like their sort of attempt at still being relevant. Is like, look at we have the new cast that people liked and we have the old cast people love. And now we're gonna put them together because that's the one thing we still have over Marvel is that they have all their their like branched off movies, but we have like the core story
Yeah.
that like their Avengers has already had their Avengers trilogy has already happened basically.
Yeah.
Um, and it does reek of like I don't know what how to like the
I
proper
have
metaphor.
I know I didn't even have a metaphor. You know what it is? Is
What?
blockbusters at this time were super fucking serious. They
Yeah,
were this is like rewatching this and like looking this is post Dark Knight. This is post Dark Knight Rises. If you look at the my whole thing is like I showed all of the Quicksilver scene. I was like, this is really cool. Like this meant a lot to me when I was younger. This was the
yes,
coolest thing ever. And the first thought, she had two thoughts. One, she's like, that is pretty cool. She's like, oh my God, Michael Fassbender's hot. And she's like, why is this color graded like shit? And you're like, that's a good point because Dark Knight Rises had a horrible color grading if you look at it.
yeah,
Um, this was the time of like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was like an uber serious dark movie. Even if you look at like Avengers Age of Ultron, they had this like all these like super serious blockbusters had this really washed out, even like Winter Soldier had this washed out gray color
yeah.
grading.
Phase two of Marvel was like produced some of the ugliest looking
It's
movies.
ugly. It's so, but like it was this weird like 2012 to 2015 was like uber serious, uber gray, uber melancholic. Where like, and this is where I'm like, I have no idea what they're going for with this
And then Zack
trilogy.
Snyder cracked his knuckles
Yeah,
and
he's
went, "You
like,
think that's great? You think that's
shit, yeah.
great?
He's a 3 hour Batman vs Superman movie where everybody is miserable.
You
Right.
can't see a single thing. All you can
Yeah.
hear is people screaming their emotions at the
Yeah.
camera."
Um, God, what a fucking movie. It's a weird time, and it makes no sense considering X-Men First Class is so clearly light, campy, fun.
Yeah.
This movie is deathly serious. There is like four jokes in the movie. There is not a single tone outside of Quicksilver where they're having a lot
It
of
feels like
fun.
such a huge narrative flip all of a sudden, and it's
Yeah,
great. It's well made.
it's
I
well
don't know
made.
how they filmed that because um
It's great.
I imagine there was so much of like figuring out like logistics of like where people stand, and
Yeah.
like I can't imagine how filming that sequence is like, but it feels like the movie takes like a weird tonal shift all of a sudden.
Yep. It's also completely you have that point where you're like, why is this guy not in the rest of the movie? Like, why don't you just move, have him be like, hey,
Yeah,
can you
that's
go
because then the movie
grab
would be resolved too quickly.
exactly. It raises all these questions. You're like, hey, they're trying to kill Peter Dinklage. It's like, hey, can you just like go run and grab him real quick and bring him back and we can
Or can
talk
you
with
can you
him?
go run grab Mystique so she doesn't shoot him?
Yeah.
Like
Like it's like we can't find her. It's like, but we kind of can. Like, why is he? It's like, all right, Peter, go home and don't go any trouble. It's like, bring him on the plane. That guy just like is so cool. He can
yeah.
beat everybody up. We can talk about his arcs maybe in Apocalypse and the fact that they just ape this scene to do something, trying to do it better. Whatever.
I still think I think it's fun still,
Yeah,
but I mean doesn't compare to the first time you watch the quick
yeah,
because I remember like because again I was watching all the Dude Bro podcasts and like they're like that Quicksilver scene like and so like you hear the rumors of Quicksilver scene before you see the movie
yeah,
and like I was like oh there's gonna be a cool scene with Quicksilver and then when you see it you're like this is so cool.
yeah. It's like it completely holds up. It's a weird movie. So it starts with a future that is an alternate future, from my understanding, where the X-Men are hunted and civilization has fallen apart because Sentinels were created, and the Sentinels mutated to not only
To
just hunt,
govern the mutants and make sure they didn't go out of hand
but
using Mystique's DNA because he assassinated Peter Dinklage.
yep.
Which even then, like mid 2010s, like Game of Thrones was all the rage,
Yes,
and
you're
so like
like
you just see like random like Game of Thrones cast
yeah,
members like pop up in these movies
yeah.
around
Peter
this time
Dinklage,
period.
yep,
Now no one cares about them.
yeah. Sophie Turner as Jean Grey in the next one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's really interesting. So they have that, and they basically are like Wolverine. You have to go back in the past because he's like, what if you could send somebody that can heal just as fast as they're torn
His
apart?
brain can heal, and
And it's not in it. It's like
yeah.
not. There's no stakes. You're like, okay, cool. But like you have to go back in the past and convince
Also, did Ellen
yourself.
Page have to use the bathroom right off like the week that he was
Yeah,
there?
I was gonna say like they're explaining. They're like
They're
you're like
like,
you
get the
you.
porta potty. Let's all turn away for a second.
She's gotta pee. All her when she got cut, all of her liquid fell out of that cut. That's what I'm thinking. She got dehydrated from that cut because
I don't think that's how
he like
the female
slices on.
anatomy works, Tyler.
But they never explained because it's like 2 hours in the future, but it's like 11 days in the past. He can go and he has to go back and he has to reunite old, young Charles, young Eric, young Mystique, and basically make it so they don't kill um Peter Dinklage because then the mutants would then create this. They would enact the Sentinels to be created, which would
Yeah, no,
cause
Peter Dinklage should become like a martyr figure if he got assassinated.
it
Like
would
it would completely justify all like the races instead of
which I want to argue that Magneto, I think, does worse at the end of this
yeah, Magneto
movie.
does significantly
He
worse.
he drops the stadium on the president and is gonna kill the president, but only because
But
Mystique
no one
saved
died,
him.
Tyler, so it's fine. Well, at least no one
Yeah,
on camera
but
died.
it's fine. It's like Magneto dropped the stadium, and he's like, "That's only a fraction of my power," and you're like, they should be even more scared of the mutants
Yeah.
now instead of one murdering him. Makes no sense. What do you think
But I
about
also
this
think I
movie?
think they arrest Mystique in the original timeline. They arrest Mystique after she assassinates Peter Dinklage, but lets them use the DNA
Yeah, they
to make the
capture her.
Sentinels,
Yeah.
which then allows them to adapt to
Okay,
whatever
I'm
X-Men they're
sorry. I'm
fighting.
sorry. The movie's a lot
So
smarter.
like yeah,
Yeah, so they could be more scared of the mutants, but they don't have her DNA to do the Sentinels that kill the
yeah.
mutants. Yeah, that's a good point. That's fine. Fuck, whatever.
But then again, if Quicksilver just was like, oh hey,
you're Peter
you're Mystique,
Dinklage.
okay, let's put you in
Yeah,
jail.
you're gone now. It's like, or Peter Dinklage just
Which
move
is
him
like,
like
why did they have to break out Magneto? Like,
they have
besides
because
having a cool Pentagon fight,
they have to they have to reunite him because only by reuniting him he could convince Mystique.
even though he immediately tries to kill her as
Yeah,
soon as
immediately he's immediately like, "Oh, there's a bad future. I'm just gonna murder her."
which
Like,
again,
and you're,
like Ryan Singer, like dumbness. Like one scene he's trying to murder Mystique, like in cold blood out in public. And the next scene, they're in a private hallway and they're just like he's like, "Oh, I was wrong," and now
oh no, but she
now
has a knife to his throat, and she's like, but isn't it metal? Like, can he's like, I'll
But then he
do.
never tries to kill her again. Like, oh, when she walks away, it's like again, it's Bryan Singer. Like, you have really great characters in First Class that have nuance and depth, and
Yeah,
then here, like they just have like they go from one extreme to the
yeah,
next. Which
yeah,
another thing, which is like again a cinema sin, but I love is like when characters just happen to walk in on
yeah,
major plot points,
yeah.
like Professor X, Magneto, and Beast all walk in right as Mystique is about to kill Peter Dinklage.
Yep. They're like,
And like again, like
hey,
I love it. Like I
yeah. They're
love
like,
that
it's
stuff.
you. I know you. Um,
Like wasn't
I
there any security? But
yeah,
whatever, it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
I love that stuff. It's and again, it's a huge plot, like juggling so many characters. But it's like kind of charming, I would
It
say.
is.
Like I like that stuff.
There's a weird charm to it. Okay, so this is a really weird movie. Okay, so Eric or Charles is a heroin addict superhero. He
Yeah.
cannot use his powers because
Again,
he
the last scene of him in First Class is him being very fulfilled. Like I'm gonna
like
start at university, everyone will be happy.
yeah, like she's like, I know, I understand my losses, but I have hope. And the movie immediately starts with him losing all hope, and he's like, the loss
Yeah.
of these people has greatly affected me. Which I had this argument. First Class should have been about the formation of the X-Men with the ideologies beginning to divide. It ends with them defeating Kevin Bacon, but they're and I know that the movie did take this approach, but maybe the
Don't
books don't
X-Men First
separate.
Class is perfect.
No, hold
Don't you
on.
dare.
Hold on. If you're thinking about it from a trilogy perspective, like we want to lead into the
Okay.
next movie because this movie starts with him like he's like Raven's gone, my friend Eric's gone. And it's like you kind like not you need like one more movie to really sell the loss a little bit to sell how this optimistic, hopeful, like
Or
true
to show
leader
Charles like kind of broken down by the end of First Class.
a little bit, yeah, like a lot
Like
like
he
he
lost all of
lost.
his friends. But again, this is what happens when you have one filmmaker and group of writers making one movie, and then you just push them aside to
Yeah,
bring back the old guard again.
the old guard again. Who and okay, so they basically so Eric is like or Charles is like but Wolverine is like I'm a leader now because this is a Wolverine from the future who has met Charles and has been helped. But he basically has to act as the leader to drag him along. He's like I'm not a leader. You have to be the leader. So you kind
Yeah.
of like you build. It leads to like multiple action set pieces, multiple stuff, a lot of character moments. Charles and Eric. That one scene where he runs into him and then immediately punches him in the face in the Pentagon. I was like, that's pretty cool. I was like, I like that. But it all technically builds around Mystique and her blueness.
Yeah, because Jennifer Lawrence won an Oscar the year before, so
No, she won an Oscar 2 years
2 years before.
before.
But when
And
they were
and
filming it, it was the year before.
shit, that's a good point. Wait, she didn't win for Silver Linings Playbook.
Yes, she did.
She did?
Yeah.
Oh, good for her. Oh, okay. She's really good in that movie. I like that movie a lot.
She's really good in that movie.
Yeah, she's really awesome. She deserves it. Um,
Every
it's
other movie since then.
Do you think this is a better movie than First Class? And
No, I think First Class is better.
what about this movie is not as good? I know you said the characters, but like, what about it works? What about it doesn't work in some kind of like grand
Yeah, I
scheme?
just think like the First Class is just such a more concentrated story, both from like the character perspective, like all the unique, as I said, the unique character dynamics. This
Yeah,
movie just feels like a dumbing down of that. Um, I feel like the again, I love the set piece at the end of the Cuban Missile Crisis set piece at the end,
yeah.
and like this movie's just like they're in like a park, and
They're at the White House that has been surrounded by a stadium.
yeah, for some reason,
And I like how they go into the bunker and he just lifts the metal bunker out of the ground. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, that's
and
cool.
like yeah, tonally, just again, it reeks of like make it dark.
Make it dark, make
Yeah.
it serious. Like,
And
yeah,
again, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a really good movie.
yeah.
Part of why I like it is because it's dumb.
It
And
is a little dumb. It's a little dumb.
yeah, but like I love Logan's interactions with like the old crew and like
Me
having
too.
to like because again, like us, like as I said, like transition from X-Men 3 to First Class, like
Yeah,
he's kind of doing the same thing where he's like he has an idea of who these characters are, but then seeing them 40 years, 30 years prior,
yeah.
it's that stuff is so much fun to me. And like I love the scene where because he has the bones instead of the adamantium. So when he
Yeah.
goes through
The metal detector,
the metal
yeah.
detector, he's
He's like, and
like
I'm like, that's a great little, like a little like franchise little moment where you're
and
like,
him
oh,
like trying to remember who he was back then. Like he wakes up in the bed of the mob boss's wife or
with
whatever.
his ass.
Or,
He is so ripped in this movie. It's
yeah, it
disgusting.
is disgusting. And hot.
And hot. I don't want to be him. And I want
Once
to
you
be
see the muscles in the Wolverine,
oh
they
my.
just
Oh, that one scene. That
yeah, they explode. Um, I love the future plot, and I wish there was more of it. Like I can't imagine like if you're like a diehard fan of the X-Men trilogy and you're excited for this movie to
Yeah.
see the old characters back in action, they do jack all in this movie.
Yeah. They're
Um,
they're they're solely
they
to
don't do
race.
anything
They're
besides
slowly to have a
like
ticking clock element
yeah,
of it,
Magneto and Xavier have like a couple scenes,
where they're like, I
but
wish we
like
had more time.
yeah, and then obviously Logan has a lot of scenes, but he's been in the but he's not like he went away since the X-Men 3, like he was still doing Wolverine
Yeah.
movies. Um yeah, I can imagine being disappointed by that, but it's like the flashback plot is interesting enough,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have like the team dynamic that first class has. It doesn't have the character dynamics and nuances that first class has.
Yeah.
And also, like, I wanted more of the future stuff. Like, I wanted to learn more about what was going on in that timeline because like there's so
Yeah.
many cool looking characters there, and it's again, it's all it serves is like a ticking clock.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue with like an apocalyptic timeline like that is like they're clearly just characters on a run, like trying to figure out a plan, but they just don't because everybody's dead. And it's like
Yeah,
it's the stakes. It's the plot of stakes. It's a plot of narrative propulsion rather than like thinking about it. They do have one good scene where Charles from the past interacts with Charles from the future, and
mm,
which is like the most connective tissue. And you're like, this is actually really good. And I like how the more in line they become, the less blurred the interaction between them
yeah.
becomes, or when he like looks into Wolverine's mind. Like I like a lot of that. And I know when we're talking about first class, I'm like, hey, no Wolverine, pretty good, right? You watch this and you're like, man, Hugh Jackman's so fucking good in these movies. You're like, he's
Yeah.
so good. Like he is so good in these movies. And you kind of have that moment where like, I'm actually okay with him being the lead of every movie. He's like a very good like proponent and like propulsion for them, which I think is really awesome. But yeah, it's a really weird, dumb movie that I kind of like love. It means a lot. I like kind of really love this movie for
It's a
some
ton of
reason.
fun. Um, but I just can't help but feel like it's a step down from first class.
I would I would say in terms of actual movie, no. In terms of narrative arcs, yes. In terms
Okay.
of like whatever they're going for with the franchise, it makes absolutely no fucking
It feels
sense.
like a movie that could have gotten away with being two parts. Because like I wanted more of the future stuff. That's like kind of like my biggest complaint is I wanted more future stuff.
Yeah, but I
And
mean it doesn't ultimately matter because by the end of the movie it's a timeline that is gone.
yeah,
That future no longer exists. Which also like it's a weird movie because I think they're like we wrote ourselves into a corner. Fuck, like how we're gonna get to where these people are now, and they just are like, it's all gone. Like we're just gonna rewrite it all, like reset, rebalance. And I like that scene at the end where Charles like has that moment where he realizes that this is the Wolverine from the past who has finally woken up. I think I think that's what that was supposed to be. He's like, I need all the
well, I mean, Professor X seems to know. He's like, you're finally back or whatever.
yeah, like I know you, like you came back from 1973, and you're like,
Mm.
what? It's a good movie. I'd say they're
It,
like weirdly on par in the same reasons.
yeah. It's slightly worse to me, I would say,
You know this,
than
my
First
mutuals and
Class.
Letterboxd do not like this movie. Letterboxd is not as big of a fan on this as I thought they would be.
Oh, you having a falling out with your precious letterbox?
With a little bit, I saw a little bit too many like 2-star reviews. I'm like, this is not a 2-star movie.
It's
You guys
not
are
no, it's not a
nuts.
two-star movie. Yeah,
Bryan Singer
it's
has made plenty of shitty movies. Just Bohemian Rhapsody exists. Just go shit on that. Jack and the Beanstalk Slayer is not a good
hey,
movie.
that movie's good. Check him out.
I saw that in theaters. I went and paid money to go see that. I remember that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this movie? Do I have any thoughts on this movie? A lot
Yeah,
of my thoughts.
you're supposedly you were the note taker for this one, and I ain't seen too many quotes.
Uh, I said one of my notes is Magneto lifts the stadium. I forgot about that, and in parentheses, I said, "Is he Jesus?" Because he's like this. Um. Oh, I also said there's an insane presidential press conference in there. Imagine your president is like, "There are mutants. Here are my giant fucking robots. We're gonna kill them all." I was like, I remember I was watching that. I was like, "There's no way that's real."
I did love the scene where you think Richard Nixon's gonna be a hero, like when he comes out, he's like, just take me, leave them alone. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, and then they're making Richard Nixon the hero of this movie, and then
Yeah.
now like the real Richard Nixon's like cowering in the
He's
corner.
like in fear. I'm like, that's
Yeah, like
great.
that was very funny. And like
I
Peter Dinklage is really good. I like Peter Dinklage in this movie.
did you catch a scene where he went to the office and in his office there's a giant painting of him giving a child like in a wheelchair a
Yeah,
prosthetic
I saw
leg?
that.
I was like,
And
that's
he's
great.
like trying to be taller. Like there
Yeah.
was kind of yeah, that was pretty funny.
I one of my notes is I forgot how the Vietnam War like plays a part in his drug addiction. I thought was fine.
Yeah.
He's like, we lost so many mutants kind of thing in the war, and you're like, okay, it's cool.
I like the again, like a much cooler movie would have been like mutants in the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It would have been a cooler movie. That's basically my
But
notes.
no, we have to have Magneto turn evil.
I basically just said like I basically was just like my final note was basically like that's an insane presidential press conference to give. Like that makes no
Yeah.
sense. He's like my robots are gonna murder everybody.
Do you want to reserve 5 minutes to talk about
I
the,
think we
the
need.
best X-Men movie?
I think we may need a few more than 5 minutes. This movie sucks. X-Men Apocalypse.
This,
It's really bad. What do you think?
I think it's fine.
It's not
It,
fine.
it
You're too
has
nice.
it's goofy and I like it. It's
It's
trying to be dark and it's coming off as goofy and I love I love it for that.
it. Okay, here are my thoughts. You ready for this? It looks worse. It's lit in like the Flash CW show. It's Power Rangers.
The last fight scene is very bad. It's just looks
It's
like a set. It
awful,
does not look
awful,
good.
awful. My whole thought is this movie makes no sense in the timeline. They basically went because Bryan Singer, you go from campy fun Matthew Vaughn to deathly serious Bryan Singer to deathly fun, can't be serious. Can't be like deathly serious, can't be fun. Like
Unintentionally unintentionally fun.
yeah,
Trying to be
unintentionally.
serious.
It's like it's really weird. This movie has a moment because at the end of Days of Future Past, Mystique is imposing a striker, and they take
Mystique,
Wolverine.
who does not show, who isn't blue for like
Isn't it?
2 minutes of this movie.
Because she doesn't want to sit in that fucking chair, and you know what? I don't blame her.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't blame her. She had to sit in there for like a whole day or whatever.
but the movie has real striker has Wolverine. So how did Mystique not get Wolverine to then real striker? It's a movie that you're like, Bryan Singer, you directed the previous movie. What are you doing? Like, you know what happened in the pre. It makes no sense. Oscar Isaac, I about 100 minutes into the movie, I'm like, I think is that I forgot that was Oscar Isaac, not because he got lost in the role, but because he's fucking awful. He is.
He's
He is. You can't. He's like he has a scene where he grabs the TV. He's like,
he's giving the
"Loading."
Joker a run for his money. Watch out, Heath Ledger.
It's so stupid. I like that opening scene where they all conspire to kill him, and then like all the people
Yeah,
get brutally murdered, and you're like, that's pretty cool.
that guy
Uh,
gets like bent and like contorted
Yeah,
and everything. That was
where the
cool.
person goes, huh, and then the person turned into skeletons. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
what is that power? Like, but that's cool. They
I just
basic
love how Rose Byrne, for literally no reason, is assigned to a mission in Egypt and is like, "What's this?"
yeah, and she comes across a god, and you're like, what? Yeah, it's a shitty movie. Like, I gotta be honest. Like, I don't even think it's fun. They have they ape they. It's just really bad, dude. It's so bad.
I like some of it. I like like the first generation of like the real like X-Men University, X-Men
Where
School.
there's like a bunch of kids in a
Yeah,
class.
I like that stuff. Um, I actually really like the kid who plays Cyclops. Oh, Tyler's.
What? You can keep talking. I was blowing my nose.
The kid who plays Cyclops, I
Ty
think was pretty
Sheridan.
good. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
the kid who plays um Nightcrawler. He's also
Cody
in Power of the Dog.
Cody Smith McPhee. Yeah, he's in a great movie called Slow West too with Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Um, Sophie Turner puts in a performance that's serviceable.
this doesn't matter. It doesn't like.
But it's so like I just love how when when Professor X has like his mind battle with
Yeah.
Apocalypse, and it's like Professor X never throws like besides when he punches Magneto like because he's mad with anger
Yeah.
they have like a boxing match and it's so goofy.
It's he's in his mind. In the mind is the X-Men mansion, and he's like,
Yeah,
"This is my domain, bitch." And then he just like punches him a few times, and then gets the shit rocked out of him. You're like, why is Professor X a pacifist like good leader like throwing hands with a blue guy? Like, what is
scholarly
this?
man.
A
Yeah.
scholarly man in a wheelchair throwing hands with a blue guy.
Um,
Matt, you don't like the explanation that because James McAvoy has beautiful, luscious locks, that instead of like like most men, once they hit their 40s, 50s, they bald. It's the natural part of
That's
life.
naturally you'd assume that's
Yeah,
what happened,
he actually loses his hair in a mind transference ritual,
but only his hair.
but only his hair on his head for some reason, and that is how he's bald. Matt, you don't like when Apocalypse and Magneto, you don't like the third movie where Eric's like, where Charles like, Magneto, this isn't you. You're a good guy. There's someone in there. And it's the third
He's
fucking
literally a
movie.
genocidal maniac at this point. And then the last thing they're like, "Oh, old sport,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
go
love
off and
you.
cause more shenanigans.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be there."
Yeah, I'll be there to stop you. And you're like, why are you not like, why are you doing this?
He's,
I do like when they destroy Auschwitz. I was like, that's cool.
I like I like the Logan, like when Wolverine comes
Oh
out,
yeah, when he's killing
kills
all
a
those
lot of
people.
people. I actually liked to start like I hate how they make Magneto the villain again in the most contrived way possible, but I do like how he gets caught for saving a human.
Yeah, and has
Like that
to,
was really good.
yeah.
Um,
He
and
saves someone
like
and they
in theory, I like his dark turn, but the fact that it's like for the third time at this point is
yeah.
so exhaustive, and it's like it makes him like less of a character to
Yeah,
me.
it does. And he has a wife and a child in like Scotland, wherever he is.
He's in Poland,
He's
dude.
in
They're not even
Poland.
speaking English in the flat.
Whatever, man. I was not
How
into this
American
movie.
are you?
Super American.
Scotland?
I don't know. One
They
of the
speak
lands.
English in Scotland.
It's one
They
of the
don't speak
land.
Polish in Scotland.
They don't speak Scottish.
Well, there's Scottish Gaelic, but like only like 5% of the population speaks it or something.
Really? Actually,
I was there. I
I
was
didn't
there
know.
last year.
I don't know. Okay. So yeah, he turns evil because
He's
his
like,
family is
it's like you
murdered.
said Scotland or some crap.
He's so stupid. Who cares? They're in the woods, and his family gets
I
shot
like
with
to
a
stop
bow
the
and arrow.
United States of America. It's
And then
all the
he
enemy.
murders all of them. And then Apocalypse is like, you're a bad guy. I'm gonna kill them all for you. And then he's like, I'm also a bad guy. And then he spends the final act messing with the
Going.
magnetic fields of the earth. Yeah, going in a little green screen, being like this, and then Quicksilver's like, I can't get. You're my dad, but I'm never gonna say anything. So you're like, what is the point of this? Um, I like the Quicksilver stuff. I like when he goes and punches Apocalypse, and it's like this big, super serious, like he's like, I'm an evil villain, and then it just Quicksilver comes. He's like, it just punches him a few times. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Everything with Beast and like their weird individual one-on-one fights with Olivia Munn is pretty bad.
I like it when I loved it when Nightcrawler fights Archangel and like
Yeah,
Archangel's holding onto the tail and just whips it and he hits his head in the bar and
yeah,
he falls over and it's like clearly he's wearing prop wings.
yeah.
He just like awkwardly like
Awkwardly
shift
shift a little.
upward like they're made of styrofoam.
Yeah, I love,
That
and then
made me laugh.
he kind of gets a case. I like how the characters will like Olivia Munn jumps off a
Doesn't say
plane.
one word in the whole
Doesn't say
movie.
one word in the whole movie. She jumps off a plane and then stabs the building and then falls like 6 feet off the ground and is like, "Ugh." And like that's it for the fight for her. She
Yeah.
survives a lot more. Archangel like blows up in this movie. I thought it was cool. He like
Yeah.
dies. I'm like, wow, he's just killing people now. Okay. Um, Apocalypse really showed up and he's like, he just found like four random people. He's like, you guys are the strongest, and then they all kind of suck.
Storm is pretty good.
But he's like, Magneto and Storm are cool, and he's like, you Olivia Munn with an electric sword
Yeah,
are like my fourth horseman of the apocalypse, and it's like, you could probably pick someone better.
probably. Probably.
This movie
Yeah.
sucked, man. It's not a good movie. It's 2.5 hours long. It's like
It's so
it's
long.
so long.
That's my genuine complaint is that it has
It's
no reason to be as long as it is.
it's 20 minutes longer than every
You
other
weren't
X-Men movie.
sad when they killed Havoc? Remember
Which one's Havoc?
when the
Can you? Oh, is it the guy with the chest beam?
yes.
He blows up, and they don't even. They're like, and they give him 32 seconds to mourn, and then
But it
they're
did make
like,
me laugh though when Xavier asked Havoc to blow up the the
oh
mind
yeah,
meld plays and he
yeah,
goes unleash Havoc.
yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, and like
I'm
one
like
thing.
Brian Singer wrote that and like sat back and laughed. He's like, "You did it,
You
man.
did it, Brian.
You're the best, right?"
as he commits a horrific act.
Okay,
And then he
that
and
was Tyler saying that,
he
not
did,
me,
he
by
did.
the way.
He's a horrible human being. He is. I'm not gonna say he's a sex offender, like targeting like young underage boys. Like, I mean, come on.
Was he convicted, or should we say allegedly?
I mean, he's not working in Hollywood right now, is he?
If he wasn't convicted, then Tyler's views do not represent those of film frauds. If you're going to sue anyone with your millions of dollars,
Well, you
go
know
after
what?
him.
Hollywood suffered enough when he made Bohemian Rhapsody, so it was a fucking terrible movie. The most recent thing I typed in Bryan Singer in the news, and the top one is Yahoo Movies UK. Haley Berry admits to being very angry sometimes with Bryan Singer.
Yeah, allegedly not a great dude.
uh, Yahoo 3 days ago, X-Men director Bryan Singer calls sex abuse claims shakedown. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, he basically would like he's not a good guy, so it's kind of like that. I'm okay, comfortable saying with that. Nobody's listening. So Bryan Singer allegedly,
Allegedly.
you're not a good dude. Don't make X-Men Apocalypse or Bohemian Rhapsody, and we won't be here. Yeah, it's a pretty garbage movie. They have terrible scenes. It's super uncohesive. The arcs repeat. Jennifer Lawrence is not caring. Everybody seems kind of checked out. Jean Grey defeats Apocalypse, and you're like, cool. That's the end of the movie. They give
Yep.
30 seconds to Havoc, where his brother is like, Havoc, no, and then they're all knocked out, and then they're taken. It literally, like, if you actually think about that storyline with um Wolverine, it makes no sense in the course of the movie. It literally is like 15-minute scene to just immediately get them out and get them back to where they need to go. They literally just do it to have Wolverine in the movie.
That's a scene that like well also to set up Logan to show like the more violent side because they want that was like the
No,
tease
it's
for
it's to
Logan.
show how Logan got to where he is in the new timeline, because that's how we got the metal
The
claws as
nude
Stryker
timeline.
timeline. But also, isn't it a little weird if that's the implication? If is like the timeline we see eventually becomes like the Famke Jensen, like James Marsden, like Phoenix timeline where he's like no and he has to kill her. That like her as a young child like eases his mind where she's like 16 and he becomes like infatuated with
Well,
her.
who made the movie?
Oh my god. Yeah, oh my god. You just solved it.
Allegedly.
It's a 15-minute scene. You're like, cool, Hugh Jackman's in there and he's killing people. I guess that's cool. But it's like it serves no purpose because they get captured, everybody in the scene complains, and then they get out and they go to the end of the movie. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, this is technically a search for modern classics. So I guess we'll do all three. you
None of them are modern classics except for Apocalypse, which is the modern classic.
the modern movie. It fits pretty well with 2023 superhero movies. Matt,
Yeah.
search for modern classics. That's basically where we sit here and we decide, is a movie, are we going to look back in 10, 20, 30, 40 years like we do now with movies that came out in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and we're like, yeah, those movies like have stood the test of time. If we're going to argue about staples of cinema, whether it can be specific niches in genre staples, or it could be something as big as something that there is a before this movie and an after this movie, like we talked about with the horror movie genre, like Get Out. Like there's a before Get Out and an after Get Out horror genre. There's a before Iron Man and an after Iron Man. There's a that's probably the biggest two ones we have. There's Birdman. Is
Once upon a time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like we have these staples that we think in 30
Patterson.
years. Patterson that we think will be staples of like staples of Hollywood. Things we'll look back at. X-Men First Class 2011, X-Men Days of Future Past 2014, X-Men Apocalypse 2016. Search for modern classics. Are any of them? Do you have any argument for any of them being a modern classic? Any argument against or for?
I would argue First Class because of how stacked the cast is and how they would all go on to kind of define the 2010s. And I would say it also is like the formula for like how to successfully reboot a series.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I mean, like other than like I feel like Days of Future Past was like huge when it came out, and then since then,
No one
as you said,
cares.
the Letterboxd reviews like no one really cares about it.
Yeah.
So my only argument is probably for First Class. My argument is because of like it's of like how it's like the start of like so many like great careers. Even Matthew Vaughn
Yeah.
was all over the 2010s, and how it is like one of like a handful of franchises like that was able to successfully reboot. Especially because even today in 2024, so many franchises are trying and failing to reboot. I don't know. I think my only argument is the first class, and it's because of those reasons.
I would say it's a solid argument. I don't think it's enough to push it as a modern classic for me because like a movie like Black Hawk Down, let's say, you know Black Hawk Down, you've seen Black Hawk
Yeah.
Down, has like 40 of like the most important actors of like the 2000s, and I wouldn't consider it a modern classic because it's a pretty good war movie.
Mm.
I would say there has to be one thing other than like all of the cast members were in it and they become like something. Like Zoe Kravitz is in it. Like Zoe Kravitz
Yeah.
is like in like three scenes. Jennifer Lawrence in there, but Jennifer Lawrence was also big because of Silver Linings Playbook. Michael Fassbender was a known
Wait, was
actor at
this
this point.
2011?
It's 2011, yeah. Oh, I
So,
guess
but Silver Linings 2012.
2012. Okay, so she did become an Oscar-winning actor. Michael Fassbender was known though at this point. And
Kind of.
Matthew Vaughn was a
What
pretty
was Michael Fassbender in for this movie?
he was in Shame. Shame was a really big, I think a pretty
Wasn't
solid
Shame
movie.
2011 as well?
Is it? I would argue that like even Matthew Vaughn was Kick-Ass, and Kick-Ass was a much more I would say I would say Kick-Ass is more of a staple if you think about like Matthew Vaughn movies than
Okay.
First Class. Let me look up Michael Fassbender. Oh, hold on. Let me look him up because this podcast isn't long enough for y'all. So let me see. Newest, earliest first. Okay. So he had Hunger was 2008. He was in Inglorious Bastards in 2009.
That's right. Yeah.
That was probably his big one. Then he goes to he was in Jonah Hex. No way. He had X-Men First Class, then he had Shame, then he had Prometheus, then he had 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave is 2013.
Oh
He has
man, I forgot about 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah. Then he has Frank. Then he has the counselor. He goes from Frank, X-Men Days of Future Past, Slow West, Macbeth, Steve Jobs, a movie called X-Men Apocalypse, The Light Between Oceans, and then he goes to like Assassin's Creed, and then like the Alien Covenant movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then The Killer.
Bit
And
of a
then
drop off.
a little bit of a drop off. Yeah. I would say none of these are modern classics, is my argument. I think there
Okay.
are. I think it's hard pressed. I think First Class is probably the closest one. But like, is anybody talking about First Class or thinking about it? Because we ride for it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see like with their Disney's attempt to reboot X-Men, like what like is pushed forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can't argue that people are clamoring for like another first class movie. So
Yeah, I would say if we watch the new X-Men reboot by Marvel and it's got a lot of shades of First Class, you could argue that it's like and those X-Men movies become really big, you can argue that there's a potential for First Class to be one because it serves
would you
as
say
a
that it has it's would you could I argue that it's more likely to because it has the lighter tone, it's not like desaturated, dark, like mid 2010s blockbuster?
I would say maybe, but the only argument we really have right now is it has a bunch of actors that turned out to be really something.
Yeah.
And a director that is still making movies, even if
Yeah.
Argyle is like a bomb. Days of
And I would
Future
say
Past, no.
I would say it's like a hallmark of like one of the exceptions of like a film that was able to reboot a franchise.
But I think we're the only ones who think that. I think we're not in the consensus. I think people like the
But like
movie.
would Days of Future Past have made as much money as it did
Days of Future
had
Past made a ton of money because of the original X-Men were in it. I think. Because if you look at the box office for these like three movies, let's say just First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse. First Class and Apocalypse made under $400 million each, and First Class is
yeah.
the one that boomed because it had the original cast members, and I think they heavily pushed that one more because it had the original ones in it and had Wolverine, and Wolverine tends to people like seeing his movies. I mean,
Mm.
there's potential reports that the Deadpool Wolverine movie could open from anywhere to 150 million to 200 million dollars at the box office, and that's Deadpool and Wolverine, and we're gonna have a whole ass discussion about that movie when it comes down to it. But like, there's an argument that these movies are only there's not an argument I would say, but like Hugh Jackman, if anyone, is a modern classic because he literally has defined this franchise. And the movie's
Congratulations,
not
Hugh Jackman. You're a modern classic.
you're a modern classic yourself, the first actor. You did it. Days of Future Past, nobody really remembers it or gives a fuck about it, and Apocalypse is a bad movie, so no.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think any of them. I think there's a tentative like 40% First Class and the rest are no's.
Okay.
Can you concede to that?
I'll concede. Yeah.
Okay. Matt, was this everything you expected it to be and more?
It was good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was happy. I'm not to pat myself in the back, but I was
Yeah.
happy with how it went. So next time we're doing Wolverine and Logan.
And Logan, yeah. Are you gonna rewatch Origins Wolverine for this? I think I might.
I think I might too.
I think I'm gonna. I think it's on HBO Max or
Yeah,
like
I think I
Hulu.
might just throw it on.
I don't want to. I like really didn't watch Dark
Things we
Phoenix
do
for
for
this.
you guys, you listeners. So leave a
Yeah.
5-star review.
Yeah, let us know. Matt, this might be our longest episode. This is a really good one. Yeah, First Class, great movie. Days of Future Past, both good movies. X-Men Apocalypse,
Yeah,
garbage movie. 1.5 on Letterboxd. That's my take.
I
Really
give her like
bad.
3 stars
You're
out of this.
such a cuck for these movies. You're such a cuck. That's not a 3-star movie. Get out of here. It's Power Rangers.
You know, Tyler was texting that he wanted to pass legislation so people would go to the movie theaters because Sean Fantasy insists that movie theaters are somehow sacred.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We should make movie theater attendance mandatory.
I want movie theaters to die so I can watch like movies on
No, fuck
streaming.
you. Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
I want to be able to watch Napoleon and be able to go to the bathroom
You
instead of
can go
sitting
to the
for three and a
bathroom. No
half
one's
hours.
stopping you during a 3-hour movie. Just go pee. Or
No, but
bring
I'm
it.
gonna miss
Wear
scenes.
a diaper like a man, like I do.
Nah, I'm sick of movie theaters. I don't want it. There's no movie theaters near me anymore either. I want them to go away.
There's definitely one near you. It's not a far commute from your
It's
place.
too far.
No, it's not. It was different when if you lived in LA, you would be like, movie theaters are the coolest thing on the planet.
I feel like if I was in LA, I would have done more than go to the movie theater.
You probably would have. Why don't you go live to LA? See what happens. See how many
I think
movie
I'm
theaters
good.
you end up going to. See when like
I lived through you, and I'm
the
good.
landmark
I don't have to
Newark by
go.
my old apartment. I'm fine with saying it. It was right off Santa Monica, the landmark Newark. I watched Raging Bull there. I watched like White Noise there. It was literally within walking distance to my apartment. Beautiful.
Sounds like great memories you'll tell your grandkids.
to be like my kid to be like I
It's like,
remember that.
Grandpa, you walked to the movie theater and you sat for 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, son, I did it 50 times.
Yeah, 50 times. Did you see it with anybody? No, my girlfriend didn't want to go with me. She was working and socializing. And was it like a Monday night? I was like, Friday night. I was 24 in LA, living it up. Were you
Then I went
invited
home
out? It's like
and I watched The Counselor.
my roommate invited me out for drinks. He invited me out to do stuff. And I was like, I gotta go see a movie.
Was it at least a good movie? I don't remember anything
I
about
don't
it.
remember anything about it. It's like, how much did you pay for it? Too much, $28. But the cinemas, that's where it's at.
Yeah,
Uh,
let them all burn.
well,
That's what I
no,
say.
fuck off. No, movie theater should exist in perpetuity forever until I die. And once I die, then they can go. That's all I need. Just let me see movie theater. I'm seeing Bad Boys this weekend. I'm gonna watch Hitman. I'm gonna watch Bad Boys.
Isn't Hitman coming out on Netflix?
Yeah, but I'm gonna watch on Netflix, and then I'm gonna go hike to the movie theater and go see Bad Boys for life.
Have fun.
There's a point, real quick, end of June, where Olive is gone for like a weekend. My family's gone on their vacation. Everybody's gone. I'm gonna have nobody. I'm gonna go see that 3-hour Kevin Costner Horizon movie because it comes out that weekend.
Okay,
I'm gonna
you
go see
do it.
Horizon Part 1
You do you.
because I want that movie to succeed because he was like, I put in $38 million of my own money, and I'm like, I'll take half of a million just to live for like 8 years.
Is that next weekend?
No, that's the end of June.
Oh, okay.
It goes like it's like Bad Boys, and then like whatever comes out on the 14th, and then the following week is Bike Riders. That Tom Hardy
Oh,
movie.
I want to see that.
I want to see that too. It looks good. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna go watch a movie and hate myself. I got some ideas for some movies we can do in the future because I watched one that I'm like we have to see.
Okay.
It's called Everybody Wants Some by Richard Linklater.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, any final points?
No, I got nothing left to say.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been fun, and fuck you and goodbye.